In the last video, I showed you how to practice your lighting using a mannequin's head. We tested different lighting angles and modifiers. The idea was to reposition the light a little bit each time and taking a shot at every new position. Today we're going to be looking at the results and learning how can we use those results as a cheat sheet for our lighting needs. This video in itself will serve as a lighting cheat sheet. I will make sure it has all the chapters for all the angles and modifiers, so if you guys decide to use it, it will be easy to navigate. But first, let me explain how to use this cheat sheet. Starting with the key light. First, you decide on the angle. All that changing the angle really does is creating a differently shaped shadow on a face. So basically, you look for the shadow shape that you like. Now all the angles are lit with a relatively hard light source. Hard light shows the shadows more clearly. You can always soften a hard light source, but you can never make a soft light source harder. When choosing a look, don't worry about shadows being too harsh. We will soften them in a later step if needed. So when you pick a look, you can see where you need to place your light. So now that we have our key light, we can set up our backlight. We go through the same process. We pick a look that we like, see where we need to place the light to get that look, pick what side we want our backlight on and set it up. Once you set up both the key light and the backlight, it's time to decide how hard or soft you want the light to be. Like I said before, the mannequin is very smooth and has no detail on the face. When working with a real person, you might see a lot of imperfections in the skin, especially when working with hard light. To soften the light, you can go to the light modifiers part of the cheat sheet. There you can see how different modifiers affect the shadows. There are two important things to consider when working with modifiers. First one is the distance to the subject. So you place the key light on a certain spot. Now you want to soften the light, so you put on a big softbox. But now the fixture itself is not the light source anymore. The end of the softbox is now the light source. So this means that the light source is now a lot closer to the subject. It is also a lot bigger. The bigger the light source is in relation to the subject, the softer it will be. The second thing to consider is light output. When you put a softbox in front of a light, you lose output. So to make the light softer while keeping the exposure the same, you might have to turn up the output a little bit or adjust your camera settings. After you have done all that, you can now decide whether or not you want to use a grid to focus the light more and eliminate a lot of the light spilling to the background. After that, you can decide whether or not you want to fill in some of the shadows. This can be done by shining a light with a lower intensity on the shadow side of the face, or by simply bouncing the key light. So to recap, first you decide on the angle of the key light, then the angle of the backlight, and then you decide on the softness and whether or not you want to use a grid. And finally, you decide whether or not you want to fill in some of the shadows. Now, in some cases, you might not want to have a key light. Maybe you're going for a silhouette type of look, which only requires a backlight. In that case, just skip the key light step. And if you don't want a backlight, do the same thing. I hope this video was helpful for you guys and that you learned something new. Now, even though this is the outro, the cheat sheet comes right after this. Till next time.